Hi guys, it's Melissa with your next video demo. So in the last video, I introduced you to measuring objects with your, measuring the angles of objects with your pencil and also measuring proportions. So that was the very basic introduction to perspective in this class. And so we're going to move on, and I'm going to do a demo, this demo here, about atmospheric perspective. And then the next demo in the queue is going to be linear perspective. So there's three strategies of atmospheric perspective. Any type of perspective in drawing is a way to show the illusion of depth, whether you're drawing an interior space or you're drawing a landscape or you're drawing an architectural rendering of buildings in a city. You want to have you want to show the illusion of depth of space in your work. And there's three basic strategies for doing that using atmospheric perspective. So as I give this talk, I want you to go ahead and grab your sketchbook and a pencil, and you're gonna kind of like monkey see, monkey do with me, although I don't want you to draw the exact same sketch that I'm gonna draw. I want you to make up your own little sketch, your little example sketch. All right, so down in the bottom of this sheet of paper, I wrote the three spaces in a drawing to keep in mind. There's the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. So that's a really good way to simplify the illusion of depth of space. Of course, you can have more than three, but those are the three kind of general spaces that if you have objects or details in a scene in each one of those spaces, then you're going to give the illusion of depth of space. So these three spaces in a drawing, foreground, middle ground, background, apply to all three of the strategies for atmospheric perspective. So the first strategy of atmospheric perspective is to make sure that you have overlapping objects. Right, so no matter what your objects are, if you have one in front of another, and they're overlapping, then you give the illusion of the depth of space between the frontmost object and the farthest object. So my example for this might be like a table, right? There's a tabletop, and then sitting on the table surface might be some objects like, a wine bottle. And maybe behind the wine bottle, I have an apple, so it's kind of cropped by the wine bottle. Right, and then maybe behind both of those, there's a big bowl. Right, and then you can see the back edge of the table. It disappears behind the bowl and comes out here. So maybe behind the table with the stuff on it, there is a chair. Right. Maybe there's a wall behind the table and chair, and there's something on the wall, like maybe there's, or for example, maybe there's something on the floor behind there, like, I don't know, a lamp or something. So we have like maybe a lamp, I'll put it down here, like a floor lamp. And maybe behind that on the wall, there's a picture or a clock or something on the wall here. Right? So you can see, now I want you to draw your own little sketch. It can be small, like I've got here, like my 3 little vertical rectangles on one piece of my sketchbook paper. You can do it that small too, no worries. Just do your own version of overlapping objects where there's one in the front, right? So the table is my frontmost object, that's my foreground. And then my objects sort of move back to the middle ground, maybe the chair's in the middle ground, and then the background is this lamp and the clock and the wall back there. So the second strategy of atmospheric perspective is diminishing size. So I'm sure you've noticed, as you're driving down the road, that the cars that are farther away are much smaller and the cars that are closer up are much larger. And the same thing applies for everything. The farther away it is, the smaller it appears. That is a strategy of atmospheric perspective, and you can use that in your drawings to show depth of space as well. So when I do diminishing size, I'm just going to do some trees. So here's a tree in my extreme foreground. If something's in your extreme foreground, it's gonna be heavily cropped because it's really close up to the viewer. I'll try to do a very quick version of a pine tree. Pine needles, extreme foreground, middle ground. And background. So I'm in a field of trees, I'm in a pine tree situation, and I've got one in here. This is my extreme foreground pine tree, and then they diminish in size as it moves to the middle ground and to the background. You can do the same thing with cars, people, animals, haystacks, houses, just whatever you can think of. Do your own version of diminishing size. All right, and then the third strategy is diminishing detail. So similar to diminishing size, we also have diminishing detail as things get farther in the background, right? So if something's in your foreground or your extreme foreground, like say there's this boat, you're going to see a lot of detail. You're going to see more contrast in terms of value. You're going to see even like textures. I sort of think of it as the nearsighted strategy for atmospheric perspective. Everything that's closer up to you, you can see more detail. You can see it better. Right, little boat coming in off the left side there, and then my middle ground boat is going to be somewhere over here. It's going to diminish in both size and detail. So my middle boat is going to be like this. And then my background will be barely there, like just hardly detail, maybe just a little gray shape, right? So now you pick your own objects, not boats, but something different that you're going to draw 3 of them, 1 in each of the spaces, a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, and make the detail diminish as it gets farther away. The more you can exaggerate this, the deeper the space looks, right? So maybe I also have, detail for the water that these boats are sailing in. And when it's in the foreground, there's a lot of variation in value and shape of waves and texture. But as it gets farther away, it's, gets to be not quite as detailed. And then farther in the back, even less. Now there's another kind of like other strategy for creating the illusion of depth and space that I haven't talked about yet, and that is making a shift in value from foreground to background. So when you think of the 3 spaces or the objects in the 3 spaces, as long as there's a shift of value from front to back or from back to front, then it actually enhances the illusion of depth of space. So it could be either that there's darker values in the foreground and then they get lighter as they go back, or vice versa. It could be that they're lighter in the foreground and then they get darker as they go back. It kind of all depends on what you're looking at and what makes the most sense. But as long as there's some shift in value from foreground to background, you're going to help enhance that illusion of depth, the depth of space on a flat 2-dimensional sheet of paper. And that is my 3 strategies of atmospheric perspective demo. And I hope you make your own sketches to practice in your sketchbook. Actually, I've assigned that to you. So there you go.